Welcome to the 5-3 Zone. Your hosts today are Ryan Kelly and Tony DeGonia. The 5-3 Zone is brought to you from the 5-3 Zone Studios in Austin, Texas. Now, your hosts.
Hey, this is Tony DeGonia. I am excited and proud to welcome to the show my new co-host, Mr. Ryan Kelly. Ryan, how are you doing today?
I am excellent, Tony. How are you, bud?
Man, I couldn't be better. I'm glad that you came on the show with me, and I look forward to doing a bunch more of these podcasts with you as a part of the team. And I think we're going to be able to, really put some information out there for the small businesses and individuals that want to know more about cybersecurity. And I think you can really help with forwarding the goal of the 5-3 Zone podcast, which is to essentially take the very technical and break it down to something that's understandable for common folks. That's been my mission for many, many years, and I know during our conversations, you've expressed that you like to do that as well, because the only way to make good people good is to give them stuff that they can understand.
Yep. I appreciate you having me. I'm looking forward to it. I made this be the first of many.
I think it will, and I think we'll give all those other cybersecurity podcasts a run for their money, because at least I think we're going to be entertaining. So today's show, we're going to talk about the cybersecurity skills shortage and how it is jumping up to the 3 million mark. So Ryan has a lot of experience here. We'll let him take off with this, and we'll talk about it.
Yep. So what we're using for reference is an ISC Squared article that I pulled up here from October of 2018. So still, really relevant. Still fairly fresh, being the January 2019 now. It does touch on 2.93 million globally. 500,000 of those are expected to be here in North America. And that's pretty significant. This has been a hot topic for a number of years. There's not a good solution to it at this point. So I think some divergent thinking and some outside the box approaches would really help people fill roles, and also be better positioned to fill those roles if you find yourselves on the employee side of things.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. Looking at how fast the industry changes, we've got the introduction and the development in the early stages of artificial intelligence and machine learning, which I think a lot of people don't really associate that with cybersecurity, but it's actually a huge play in the cybersecurity industry. How do you think those things, as they're further developed, are going to impact the learning sets that people are going to need to have to kind of break into this industry?
That's a really good question. And it's funny you mentioned that. So I have some direct experience with artificial intelligence and machine learning in regards to cybersecurity products. The challenge with artificial intelligence and machine learning in regards to cybersecurity is you have to be able to prove what the artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithms are doing and how they're coming out with the results they're coming out with. And that approach is called a supervised learning approach. Supervised learning, for those who aren't aware, is ultimately humans, ensuring that what the computer's output is after it runs, the data through the algorithm, is what is intended to be. So it's essentially a human fact checking a computer. It's not something that the human element completely goes away from. In fact, from a scalability standpoint, you're still facing similar challenges in that you don't have a whole bunch of data scientists in the employee pool, right, or potential candidate pool to be able to monitor what's going on.
Okay. Well, they say that computers are only as smart as the people that program them.
That's right. Yeah.
So I guess the proof's in the pudding there.
Yeah, it is. If you don't have really talented engineers telling the computer what to do in the first place, you're dead in the water.
Yeah. So I get that. So I kind of reviewed this article a little bit, and I know there's some high points that you kind of wanted to cover on that, and I won't sidetrack you a whole lot with these questions like this, but that aren't related to this article, because I think this article is a great topic. I actually do some stuff on LinkedIn, and I've have either mentored or attempted to mentor a number of folks who are coming out of the military, coming straight out of college. And so a lot of the experience that they have is just irrelevant altogether towards breaking into the IT industry and the security industry more specifically. I think colleges up until here very recently have done kind of a really poor job at keeping up with what's real world.
Absolutely. No doubt.
We look at folks that come in, as they come in and they apply for jobs, and we look at their certifications and we say, oh, well, this guy's a boot camp junkie. So he's been through a bunch of boot camps, but can he actually do something? But from what I've seen, that's one of the best ways. If you take that knowledge and apply it, it's one of the best ways to learn, at least for me. Of course, I'm an old dog.
It's a really good way.
As opposed to spending a lot of money and going to a 4-year school, which generally teaches you a lot of theory. I think what we need is practice more than theory.
Yep. The hands-on approach, I completely agree. Practice makes perfect.
Yeah,
not
think
listening.
So too. Yeah, I think so too. So, anyway, I know you got some bullet points you want to cover here, so let's talk about those.
Sure. So in this article, they polled 1,500 IT professionals, inquiring about their security posture at their companies in terms of staff. 63% of the respondents said that they were short-staffed or had unfilled positions that they just could not fill. That's a big challenge, especially when you consider that, further down in the article, it's talking about a third of the companies, are saying that they do have the right staffing, but they don't have the right budget to continue to train that group of cybersecurity individuals to maintain their level of education, right? There's a lot of great bullet points in here. 48% say they're going to hire more cybersecurity pros, but 70% of those say it's not going to be enough, even if they do hire new people, which, that's that just speaks to how many openings you've got, to really meet the demand.
And I really think there's a huge, with all the breaches that have occurred in the last, well, I could say all the way back to 2013, because that's when the big stuff started really happening with all the ransomware and, larger corporate hacks and things like that. But it's almost like a race to the top. How do you stay on top of hackers who don't have to play by the rules, but yet these corporate security departments, InfoSec departments, have a defined set of rules that they have to play by to defend against someone that has no rules. So that's kind of a tough deal. One of our future topics I know we're going to talk about is STEM and women in STEM specifically. And
that'll be a good conversation too.
Yeah, and to bring that to point here, there's a huge I think women in cybersecurity is what about 15% of the total manpower within.
It's ridiculously low.
It's insane, and so that's part of the staffing needs. Is there's not enough diversity between male and female people that want to be in this. Of course, if you look around at a lot of the hacker groups, they're
plenty diverse.
Yeah, they're plenty diverse. There's a lot of women hackers, and boy, howdy, are they good.
Yep.
I follow a number of them on Twitter, and they follow me back, and they come up with some crazy stuff, man, that you'd never even think of, right? Because we don't think about it that way. We think about the defensive aspect of it.
Yep. I think that's a big challenge too. A big area of opportunity. I have trained people in cybersecurity, and I've talked to a vast number of people in cybersecurity, and in sales and marketing and whatever back office position at the cybersecurity XYZ company. 9 times out of 10, they don't have any actual cybersecurity experience. They're just doing the job that they were hired to do, and oftentimes, if it's sales or tech support or marketing or something like that, they're just learning the product right then and there, and they're positioning it and pitching it, and there's not any real world knowledge or experience that they can put behind those pitches. And that's a big challenge.
Yeah, and with that being said, I mean, if you look at the different certifications, especially when you start talking about manufacturer type certifications, Cisco and Juniper are really the only ones that when you get one of their certifications, they require you to have the industry knowledge, not just the product knowledge. Now, obviously, Cisco is kind of the old standard of certifications. You get a CCNA, you can probably get a job just about anywhere. You get those Juniper certifications, and believe it or not, they're becoming more and more popular. But I used to work for WatchGuard, and all they cared about was building policies and knowing the difference in proxy and stateless and stateful connections, things like that. But it wasn't a ton of industry stuff. It was protocols and then the product. Yep. And that was it.
It's protocols surrounding their particular
surrounding
product.
Their specific product. And I mean, even when I was in physical security, working with security cameras and stuff, it was all about the protocols that they required.
Yep.
So that's a lot of folks don't understand just how broad and deep in both directions the industry goes. A lot of folks think, well, it's this product or it's that product. And, once I learn that product, then I'll be good to go. It's really not. I mean, that Security Plus certificate from CompTIA or, GSEC or one of those, I mean, even all the way up to CISSP, which is a really, really large certification for anybody to get. That's not about products. That's about, how does
security
networking
as a
work?
whole. Yep.
Security as a whole. That's right. And so a lot of people don't understand that they need to know that security as a whole. So, so where do you think the budget's coming into this? I mean, I've read that more and more C-level execs are starting to buy into the security aspect. And I think that came from the Target hack, where the CEO actually got fired for that hack. So, I mean, how do you think corporations and even small businesses can kind of think about things to maybe prioritize their network and cybersecurity in the right framework so that they can put the right amount of money to it?
Well, I think a good approach, there's a bunch of different options, right? I think a good approach would be use the resources you've got. If you have a networking guy, if you've got a sysadmin already, why not, put a little bit more investment into them, into the resources you do have, maybe get them some security training or some security certification or a boot camp, something like that. I think another approach, though, at the top level is you have to understand that, if you're doing risk analysis, what are you willing to accept? But also, more importantly, I think, what are the potential outcomes and what is the real world cost if a breach were to occur? And I don't think that that hot topic is really being discussed or emphasized as much as it should at the top level. When you're talking about the average breach costing in the millions of dollars for a company, investing a few $100,000 into your security team or your security infrastructure is a drop in that bucket. It's a very, very small price to pay for the peace of mind and for lowering that risk.
Well, I think that's really that's scalable. So the smaller the organization, there are now solutions out there that scale down as well as up, and that's important.
Very true. I'm just throwing numbers out there. The average cost of a breach is what I was going off of, so that you have to consider, the average cost of that company, that size of that company.
Yeah, and a lot of breaches. I mean, there was a stat out a year or so ago that said for every company that experienced a data breach, 60% of those would be out of business within 6 months.
Yep.
And that is simply from the crushing debt that they go into once they have to make that notification to the public.
Yep. The trust is lost.
Trust is lost. It's really, really a tough situation. And then you've got even a worse situation when you take a look at breaches like Target. And I reference back to that because I did a huge research paper and stuff on that hack, and they actually got hacked through a small little mom and pop HVAC company. So
third-party vendors.
Yeah, third-party vendors. The hacker phished mom over there. The mom clicked on the link, and then basically the hacker was able to access her computer and swim upstream through the ticketing system in Target's infrastructure. Now, Target was woefully at fault for not segregating their networks and putting in, a SIM system and, having very loose policies in their firewalls. I mean, there's tons of stuff that they did wrong, and they were pretty well right for the picking, but the bottom line is that HVAC company really took the beating from the hack because they didn't have enough resources to take that kind of beating. So they pretty much were done for right out of the gate as soon as everybody found out who that was. And I'm not going to say their name because if they're still around, I don't want to continue to beat them up, but
they've been through enough.
Yeah, there's enough articles out there that will spell out who they are and what they did and everything. So there's no need to beat those guys up. And then you've got stuff like the Marriott hack that just happened at the end of last year. They just discovered it. And so do you think it's a talent shortage that causes breaches like that? I mean, those guys were hacked and basically from the research I've done, there's about 5 different hacker organizations, hacker groups that had access to that network before Marriott bought into it. And they had access for over 4 years. I mean, what do you make of that?
You ask another good question, and I'm gonna pose a question right back at you to help paint a picture here. And I'll ask it, but I'll talk about my experience in regards to it. And it's, how did you get started in the industry, right? And I'll answer from my side first, just because I want to make sure I want to do a favor for our audience here. And again, this goes back to the divergent thinking and outside the box approach. I started by getting my foot in the door at a cybersecurity vendor in their IT department, right? And I was working in the help desk. So frontline, boots on the ground role. From there, I quickly built myself up and built the company up and migrated over into security because, being at the security vendor, security was a new interest of mine. And I went from there at that point. But to say that I had any cybersecurity skills when I started working at the security vendor would be a misnomer. And to say that I was a seasoned cybersecurity professional as I walked into the SOC at the security vendor would be another misnomer. So I was very, very green, and I was given an opportunity. And I believe it was because I had some experience at the technical level, but I also, more importantly, had the curiosity and drive for constantly learning new things. And if you have those two things, if you have the aptitude, if you have the curiosity, and you have the drive to want to keep learning things, then you can learn whatever it is you point yourself at. That's exactly what I did. So back at you, Tony. How did you join the industry?
So my journey started way back in 1990. I joined the military and was essentially in the Signal Corps. I came in, did that for 4.5, 5 years. And then I got out, and I was just about to go back to laying carpet, which is what I did before I got my first job in tech. That was crazy. I got my first job. I think I was making like $8 an hour straight out of the Army, 1995. I thought, man, I'm doing great. And I realized that $8 an hour wasn't enough money, but that's okay because I got a great learning experience. And I went to work for a small interconnect and IT firm out of Rockwall, Texas. And matter of fact, I'm still friends with the owner to this day. And so basically, I started off as Token Ring was kind of leaving, and Ethernet was really making a big play. And so it just kind of went from there. And I actually worked a lot more on the telecom side of the house for several years than I did the IT side. But my IT experience has not necessarily been like endpoint type security. It's always been larger network type security. I was a field engineer for XO Communications for a number of years. I also, after that, I went to work for a company called ACS, working in their NOC, on all their global networks, monitoring, remediation, things like that. Learned a little bit about security there. But what really, really kicked it into gear for me is I actually started a company, a managed services provider. And so I kind of learned security through force, because I had a bunch of IT clients that we were monitoring, remediating their networks all the way to the endpoint. And we found that most of our clients seriously had no plan previous to us coming along for security.
You don't say.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And these are all companies that are growing, and they're doing a great job growing, but they don't have a plan. So I had to be able to come up with that plan for them. And that's where I really started getting in bed, if you will, with firewall manufacturers. Worked with WatchGuard. I worked with Cisco. I worked with SonicWall, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but they were sufficient at the time. And so we I just kept going that way, right? And so I kept going and kept going and kept going. And I learned a lot from the top down, not from the bottom. Most people learn from the bottom up. They learn to type code. Well, I already knew a lot of the Cisco stuff because I've worked in Cisco NOCs and everything like that, right? But then the security piece, just learning what a security posture is, what the security landscape looks like, threat intelligence. And that I'm still learning to this day. And I started that first company back in 2005. And so, every day I try to learn something. And I think that's how you really become successful in the industry. That, and then being able to take those messages that you learn along the way and convey them to others. Because when you pay it forward, you get it back, 10 times over.
That's right.
So that's pretty much my story. I mean, I've worked for WatchGuard. I've worked for some physical security companies that had a large cybersecurity play. And of course, now we're both with Alien Vault, which is a really cool deal. Because we're now on the forefront of, what everyone perceives as, the hottest trend in security.
Yep.
Is that visibility. And so I'm happy to be here, and I really, really, really learn every day something new. And I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world, because I believe that when you stop learning, you might as well die.
Yep, you're done.
just go ahead and crawl in a hole in the ground. So,
speaking of, I want to also go off on a little bit of a tangent here. I've worked with some ex-TAL group people, which TAL was the red team inside of NSA, tailored access operations. Every single one of them told me the same thing or something similar. And I've met some pretty experienced ex-military guys who were, in Air Force cyber and things like that. And it all seems to be a really, really similar story where they had some sort of IT exposure at the beginning, or they had some sort of tech exposure at the beginning, and it really kind of blossomed into being exposed to security somehow. Maybe it was a nugget here, a nugget there, a little piece here, a little piece there, but eventually it was something that interested them enough that they decided to make a change, and it just ramped up from there. But it wasn't ever from the get-go I was going to be a white hat hacker. It's few and far between that you come across somebody who from the time they were in middle school or high school started plotting out what college they wanted to go to, because they knew, that's the best cybersecurity college in the world.
Most of the time when you have folks starting off at 8 or 9 years old, they want to be in black hat hackers anyway. So,
that's right.
So,
everyone's keeping us in a job here.
Yeah, that's the crazy part, because you have to defend against that. They came out with a term here a while back called digital natives, and that's basically the millennial generation have been raised since day one with technology, unlike you and I, who we can remember when we didn't have a smartphone to carry around, and that was a long time ago. But you get these kids that they learn hand-eye coordination through their smartphone before they learn hand-eye coordination with rolling a ball or things like that. And so that's really important. And so that's what happens is, those kids, they get into trouble because they're not mature enough to handle the knowledge that they've got. And eventually they may come over and become a white hat, but they definitely don't require a lot of college to get there, because they're writing the rules as they go.
Yeah.
Half the curriculum in the schools is based on stuff that they broke or tore up or pwned, if you will.
Yep. Rules that were written as a result of.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I think this ties into the next bullet point here quite perfectly, and it's kind of ironic because I think we're approaching it from a different angle than I thought we would, and that's morale problems. I have seen my fair share of morale problems in the existing cybersecurity staff, but I think this goes back to what you were saying too, in that kids growing up nowadays especially can easily be influenced, obviously, but have morale problems thinking, oh, you know what? I don't want to have to get a job. I don't want to have to get a real 9 to 5. I don't want to have to go to work. I don't want to have to boss. I don't want this. I don't want to wake up early. I don't want to get dressed. I don't want to shave, whatever the I don't want to, right? Right. Exactly. And it boils down to morale. Like they just don't want to, do anything and turn the way of Black Hat and try to make a quick buck, and who knows what happens from there, obviously. But it's the same thing in the white hat space too, because of the shortage of white hats. The work-life balance suffers sometimes, or oftentimes. You have, way more working hours than you do sleeping or eating, or, free hours. You're often overworked because you are understaffed, and it can be really, really taxing really, really quick for the people who aren't seasoned to working, 60, 80-hour work weeks, not seeing their friends and family very often.
That could be a matter of efficiency too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
How efficient are you at handling those tasks? And so that just comes with experience. Unfortunately, as a white hat, it's difficult to just go out there and start hacking stuff. I mean, because you're supposed to be one of the good guys. So, you're kind of monitored a little bit, I think, from that side. So like I was saying, playing by the rules. So you have to play by those rules. Otherwise, you lose that white hat status.
That's right.
So, that's a great point you make there. And I do see the morale issues as well. There's kind of a natural, I don't want to say indifference, but maybe a little bit of a negativity that kind of comes with the super deep technical people anyway.
Yep. There's definitely a stigma.
They like to live in the dark spaces. And so, that morale issue, it doesn't take much to set it off anyway. And then from there, you just have a problem on your hand. But those things are going to have to change a little bit to attract some of the really bright young folks that are maybe looking at getting into this. And like with my own kids, I've got kids are 14, 16 and 21, and I try to get those guys interested in tech. And, they want to use their smartphone and their computer, but when I start talking to them about, some of the technical aspects of the industry, they're just like, Dad, we just don't want to do it, man. We see what you've been through. We don't want to go there. My oldest son, he's like, I'll just be a car mechanic. That's cool, man. Make my own hours pretty much or whatever. And then, the younger two, the 14 and 16-year-old, she wants to be a cosmetologist, and he wants to, I'm not even sure, he wants to be a Navy SEAL. I told him he needs to start running now.
Yep.
And that, there's going to be a certain amount of this that infiltrates into the Navy SEALs. And,
Absolutely.
There's going to be some very technically savvy folks that are getting into those special operations branches simply because they're going to become more and more required skills. I think as cyber attacks, especially nation state type cyber attacks, start to grow, then we're going to see more and more of those becoming part of the special operations within the military.
I agree.
With the advent of the Cyber Command over the summer last year.
Yep. Yeah, and it's its own arm. It's funny. You mentioned that you have one that wants to be a car mechanic. I think that in a not so distant future, that having programming skills is going to be how you are a car mechanic, because ultimately they're going to be driving themselves. And if you don't know how to interact with the computer that's controlling that, then you're not going to be a mechanic.
Well, absolutely. And there's a lot of articles out there right now about hackers actually infiltrating the computers in vehicles. And they're actually able to go up through the satellite, hit that vehicle, with a bug, with malware, whatever. And, there's been instances where they've actually caused a vehicle to stop in the middle of a highway.
Yeah. You don't even have to go up to the satellite. You can actually be on site, within a certain distance of the vehicle.
Proximity type connections. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, and I think that's just going to get worse. So cybersecurity is actually going to move out to every aspect of every industry that we're aware of. Maybe not ditch digging unless they get internet connected shovels. But you never know what's going to happen. I mean, my toaster's connected to the internet, so you never can tell.
That's right.
I actually get a push message on my phone when the toast is done. I'm just kidding, not really, but yeah, it's almost to that point. So I guess we've covered most of the bullet points today.
Yeah, I think we have.
Okay.
It just again for me it kind of boils down to I think that no matter where you are, no matter who you are, whether you're somebody who's looking to break into the industry or you're looking to fill a role, you either got to look, for how do I get my foot in the door and start, kind of working my way into security? Or if you're on the hiring end, hey, what resources do we have currently that we could maybe train up and invest in? Or can we maybe loosen up some of our hiring requirements? Maybe they don't have the real world experience. Maybe they don't have the certifications, but do they have the aptitude? Do they have the curiosity? Do they have that lifelong learning, that will enable them to be successful if we bring them in and provide them the right training and the right resources?
Yeah, because you can teach tech. Tech is not hard to teach.
Nope.
You can teach a lot of things, but there's a couple of things you can't teach. You can't teach curiosity.
Nope.
You can only inspire it. You can't teach creativity. And what I find from what I've been learning and hacking and doing some stuff just in my own personal lab, the more creative you are, the more creative you think about things, the more likely you are to find success in whatever you're trying to do.
Yep, you're right. And especially in security. That's a big characteristic.
It really is. And you'd be surprised, even though something is designed to work a certain way, a lot of times a manufacturer doesn't know everything that their product will do. So if you can turn that around and make it do stuff better or cover an area that maybe there's not necessarily an invention out for yet, that's where creativity comes in.
Yep.
So I think this is probably we're probably at the end of the show here. So I really enjoyed this, and I look forward to the next podcast coming up very soon. We'll be launching this out sometime next week, and you can tune in and listen to Ryan and I go back and forth again. And we look forward to it, and we appreciate you guys joining us. All right. So y'all have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
This concludes the show today. We are glad you joined us. You can find the show on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, on the Cyber Simplified website at www.cybersimplified.com. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon.